Good morning, Della.
Good morning, Sam. How are you?
Wonderful. I'm excited.
Good. I
Scott,
like morning time.
you like the mornings?
I do.
We're gonna
Good morning,
start.
Ella.
We're gonna start
Good
mixing it
morning,
up.
Sam. How are you?
We're gonna start mixing it up a little bit so that we have mornings and afternoons. So I'm getting mixed reviews on both.
Oh, I'm sure.
Everyone has an opinion.
I have some 7 a.m. board meetings and it's a 50-50 split. So,
Oh, we're gonna start in about 4 minutes. I'm not sure how many people are gonna be on this Zoom this morning because it's early.
well, it's an important conversation. I haven't refreshed it in a while, so I thought it was a good one.
I'm streaming live to YouTube for the first time. We'll see what happens.
Oh, that's cool. I'll turn my camera off now. Oh, there's one of my agents. Good morning, Art.
Good morning, Della. You don't have to turn your camera off. We love that radiant smile.
Yeah, right.
Morning, Aaron. How are you? Good morning,
Good
Tiffany.
morning. How you doing?
I'm good.
Yeah. Sam, meet Art. Art lives in Michigan, sells Florida from Michigan.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah. Sam's your go-to attorney closer in Naples area, Naples, Bonita Springs.
nice. I'll be down there in April for my CIPS.
Well, that's cool.
Maybe we can meet.
Yeah, of course. Just give me a call. I'm around. Very much the office about 7 to 6 every day.
Okay. No banker hours, I see.
Yeah,
No banker hours.
exactly.
All righty. Let's
So
see.
what's your temperature this morning?
Who, me?
Yeah, how
Mhm.
cold is it up there?
Well, I walked outside in shorts and my muck boots, and it was I was like, oh, this is nice. It's probably 42. But but at 6:45 in the morning at 42, that's a blood. We're gonna get a heat wave. It might be 50 today.
Of course, it was only like 60 in Naples this morning, so it's really not like it's
Yeah,
a whole lot warmer.
But you're in Naples.
yeah,
That's true. We enjoy Naples.
true.
Yeah, Naples is nice.
It's 60 there right now, Sam?
There was 60, about 64 when I pulled up to the office.
Wow. It's 45 here.
Where are you at?
Usually don't have that much differential.
Della, where are you located?
In Punch Porta.
Oh, you're up a couple miles north. Okay, an hour north. Yeah. Okay. Morning, Cat. Oh, Tiffany. Good morning, Tiffany.
Hi.
Morning. Good morning.
That didn't sound enthusiastic.
Who am I talking to?
Oh, we're gonna start in like 1 minute. Let's see a few more people join, but probably be late. It's a little early. I hope everyone has coffee. Get the recording started.
No.
Alrighty, so like I said, I hope everybody has coffee. We're gonna start in like 1 minute soon at 7 o'clock. But yes, the weather here is mixed this year, but still warmer than every other place on in America. So that works okay for me. Let's see
I'll
here.
take it.
Yeah. Alrighty. Can everybody see my screen? This is the white screen Homestead. Good.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Let me mute myself.
Good morning, Helen. All right. All right, it's 7 o'clock. I want us to be on time. I'm sure a couple more people will join as we get started here. This morning we're going to talk about Homestead. We're going to go over the basics about what you need to know to inform your customers about Florida Homestead. It's very different from all the other states in terms of the protections it provides. So we're proud of our homestead in Florida. In Florida, we call homestead the legal chameleon because it's always kind of moving around a little bit in terms of some of the title issues. But for what you need to explain to your customers, it's pretty cut and dry. Of course, because I am an attorney, we're going to start off with a disclaimer, and I'm going to be giving you some information, but it's not necessarily legal advice for you individually. A little bit about me. I'm excited actually to announce this morning that I am now on the Florida Realtors Contracts Committee. So not only do I help draft the NABOR contract, but I also am now helping to draft the FARBAR contract, and I'm really excited about that. We have our first meeting in a few weeks. So if you have any questions about the contracts, you call me anytime. As far as today goes, we're going to talk about property taxes, restraints on alienation. That's the ability to sell the property, asset protection, and then we'll get into a little bit about the federal taxes for Homestead at the end. I'm going to dive right in this morning, talking about ad valorem property taxes and how you can save money on your taxes by homesteading. I do want to take a few minutes and talk about just the property tax system basics. Florida has a great system. I really like the way they do it in Florida. Every property on the first of the year is assessed, and the property appraiser, they obviously don't knock on every door and assess every home. They have systems and processes, but every year as of January 1st, every property in the county is assessed, and the property appraiser goes through their process. That in August they send out a proposed property tax notice called your trim notice, and you have an opportunity then to review your notice, talk to the property appraiser if you want to challenge it, and then the local government set their budgets and their millage rate at that same time, and then on November 1st you get your tax bill, and your taxes are due by March 31st with a discount for paying early. So if you pay in November, you get a 4% break, December a 3% break, January 2%, February 1%, March everything is due as assessed. That's kind of how the tax system works. You have an opportunity to challenge it. If you don't like your assessment, you can go through the VAB, the advisory board, the value adjustment board, and you can decide after that if you want to appeal it to the court system. But that's a very expensive process, and most of the counties usually win the appeals because they're very good these days at assessing property taxes in a fair manner. There are a number of exemptions to the homestead, and we're going to go through a number of those. If you have if you are homesteaded, you get $50,000 off the first $50,000 off your value, and it's broken up by 25 on the first 50,000 and 25 on the third 50,000. It gets a little complicated, but basically you have to be a permanent resident as of January 1st, and you can file your exemptions prior to January 1st of the year when you want to get homestead, but you must, and this is an important date, you must file before March 1st. So before March 1st of the year in which you want homestead. The other thing about homestead, I know, you were just saying you're up in Michigan, so a lot of people, they always ask me, well, my spouse has a homestead in Michigan. Can I get my homestead in Florida? The answer is no, and they check. So Florida, the property appraisers talk to each other. They have background databases. They know who's getting homestead in different states, and they know that you can't split your homestead. So that becomes a big issue. There are other exemptions, but we'll get to those in a minute. How do you prove that you're a resident as of January 1st? Well, evidence of ownership includes your deed, tax receipts, utility bills. You bring that with your social security number for you and your spouse, your voter registration if you're a voter, a Florida driver's license that is dated prior to January 1st of the year in which you own Homestead. So you can't just walk into the DMV on January 2nd, get your driver's license, and then go to the property appraiser and get your homestead prior to March 1st, like we said. You've got to do it all prior to January 1 to be in the property and have it as your homestead prior to January 1. Now, there is an issue I want to bring up for a lot of people who close towards the end of the year. You can file a declaration of domicile prior to January 1st. So if say you close between Christmas and New Year's, well, you're move into the property on December 31st and make it your homestead, but you haven't had time to change your driver's license over, get your declaration of domicile filed with your deed, and then we can go fight with the property appraiser about when you actually achieved homestead. And that's a little bit of a challenge, but we can usually talk them into giving you homestead as of the next year, which will saves you obviously a lot of money in taxes. Now, there's some other thoughts about getting the tax savings. If you're not a U.S. citizen, you need to have a green card. If your property is held in trust, they need a complete copy of your trust agreement. And if your residence is a mobile home, then they need all the mobile home documentation, the decal number, and a copy of the registration showing that you're the owner. And again, if your spouse benefited from residency-based exemption out of state, then you need like a letter from that appraiser up north or whatever agency they use up north showing that the exemption has been removed. So be very careful again about that, because I've seen a lot of people where they try to split it. And as we get into this, the penalties are enormous for cheating on homestead. So Florida has a Save Our Homes exemption, like I said. They passed this in 1992, it started in 1994, and it limits the assessed value to 3% or the consumer price index, whichever is less. This is where the real homestead savings is, because your taxes can't go up as much as Florida, especially Southwest Florida property increases in value. So I live in Collier County in Naples, and if the average home assessed value goes up about 8% a year over the long term, that's like as good as the stock market. But if you're homesteaded, then the value only goes up 3% as far as the taxes are concerned. And you really do achieve an extraordinary amount of savings. There's one example, as some of you know, I used to be on the Naples City Council, and there was a woman who lived on the beach and she had been there for 50 years. And she had an assessed value of a little over $150,000 on a beachfront property, not a little beachfront property, a big beachfront property. And she paid the city of Naples anywhere from $10 to $15 a year in taxes. And I'm not exaggerating. And she passed away and the property got reassessed to $12 million. You can imagine that she enjoyed a huge amount of savings from Save Our Homes over the years. The buyers, of course, not happy about their tax bill increase. That's the way the system works. But the Save Our Homes value can be exceptionally valuable for long-term residents of Florida. Now, this cap only applies to the real estate that qualifies and receives the homestead exemption. It does not apply to new construction on previously unassessed improvements. So when you improve your home, they will reassess it, and it could go up more than 3%. If you add an addition, redo the kitchen, the appraiser looks at all those permits in an attempt to get the most accurate assessment possible. And then the cap goes into effect the year following the grant of homestead. So if you homesteaded in 2024, then your cap would start in 2025. And it resets to the full market value when you sell to the new owner. So the process starts all over with each owner. The other great thing about Florida homestead tax savings is that it's portable. So when you move, you don't lose it. You can transfer up to $500,000 of your actual home exemption to your new property. And when you move to and there's a formula, by the way, you get a piece of it. Unfortunately, I'm not great at math, so I'm not going to go through the formula. But there is a formula the property appraiser can do to when you move either to a more valuable or a less valuable home, and you get to take your exemption with you. And again, that is a huge amount of savings. And what the purpose of this is it allows people to move around, and so you are not locked into a home if you're on a fixed income, or if you are you're having difficulty in this market with, I know, with wages being so out of whack with property values and with interest rates trying to move. At least you don't have to worry about losing your property tax savings. This is a huge value. I think you guys are out there selling real estate in this market, and it's a tough market right now. This is an advantage for you to say, listen, you can move and keep your homestead savings when you move. If you move to a smaller property, it's a formula, a ratio that really makes it easy to move around. There are other exemptions. If you're a senior citizen over the age of 65 and you earn less than $31,100, and the municipality or the county adopts an ordinance, then you get a reduced or zero taxes. There are a number of veterans disability exemptions that could get you up to 100% off your taxes. There are some civilian disability exemptions for the disabled or the blind. There are widow and widower exemptions. And then there are nonprofits don't pay property taxes if the property is owned by a not-for-profit. And going back to some of these, I mean, if you think about the population of Florida, it's an older population, a lot of veterans. And so those are favored statuses in Florida, and they do a great job in the legislature about taking care of our veterans and our elderly. And I really like those. I think that's a good idea. So what about losing your homestead? You have to have legal or beneficial title as of January 1st. If you do not, you lose your homestead. When you purchase a property, you inherit the homestead exemption for the current tax year only. Then you have to reapply. That's why we tell everybody when they buy a property, you have to reapply. Even if the homestead was applied from your seller, you'll get to pay their homesteaded value taxes that year. You're going to pay more taxes the next year. If you don't qualify for homestead, you move, spouse moves out, gets homestead in another state or something. If you don't qualify, you must notify the property appraiser or you are going to be in a lot of trouble. The taxes can go back as far as 10 years. It's a 50% penalty and 15% interest. So if you think mortgage rates are high, you're not going to like paying 15% interest on your taxes either if you try to cheat on homestead. So counsel your customers to talk to an attorney and make sure they understand that if they move, they've got to take care of their homestead. What do you do when you rent the property? We have a lot of people that convert their property to rentals, and that's an abandonment of the homestead. If you rent all or substantially all of the unit of the dwelling, then you can lose homestead. The one thing I would say about rentals, though, first of all, don't rent your homestead on January 1st. So if you do Airbnbs a couple times a year, don't rent your homestead on January 1st. You may rent your homestead for a portion of the year, a small portion of the year, or you may rent a small portion of your home for all of the year, but you have to apportion the homestead. So say you like to rent out a spare bedroom to make a little extra income, then you would need to apportion that out with the property appraiser, and you pay a little bit more taxes, but at least you won't lose all of your homestead exemption. And you can rent your homestead out for 30 days and still claim homestead. But remember this, the cases on this exemption are very fact specific. So be very careful. It's not guaranteed that you will get to keep your homestead if you rent your property out, but the cases do seem to provide a 30-day safe harbor. Okay, questions on ad valorem assessments and homesteading for tax purposes? Does anybody have any questions before I move on to selling the property? Okay. So let's talk about restraints on alienation and whether you can sell your homestead without spousal joinder. What does that mean? It's a question of who signs and when. So the second homestead protection in Florida is this restraint on alienation. And I put some examples here on the screen. If you've got one spouse on title and you're buying a second home without your spouse will still have to join the mortgage on the second home. So you have to be prepared for that. So when you sell them their second home, they say, no, this is going to be mine. We're not putting my wife on title. Well, she still has to sign the mortgage. She does not sign the promissory note. She's not obligated for any money, but because she could move into the property and make it her homestead immediately after closing, she's got to sign the mortgage so the lender feels secure. If you're a married seller and you're selling a second home, if you put non-homestead language in the deed, that's the language that says this property is not my homestead is located at, and you put the address of your homestead. If you put that language on the deed when you sell, then the spouse would not have to sign the other deed. So that's comes into play a lot when people are selling their second home and the spouse has already moved up north, for example, and won't be available to sign. If you've got a homestead up north already, then you're good to go. If you're selling your homestead, even if there's only one spouse on title, both have to sign. Homestead is, like I said, is very pervasive, and the spouse has to sign. If both spouses are on title, obviously both have to sign the deed. Both have to sign the mortgage if they're buying, even if only one spouse is the borrower on the promissory note. That's the same as up here. The spouse joins the mortgage on second homes. All sellers on title have to sign when they're selling. And remember this about Florida, you are either married or single. So there is no separation. I get a lot of questions from people who are going through divorces, say, I'm not divorced yet, but we're separated. My spouse won't cooperate. What do I do? The answer is we have to go to family court and we have to get an order to sell the property from the judge. The other question I get a lot under the restraints on alienation portion of homestead is, can one spouse waive their rights to the homestead? And the answer is maybe. There is a statute. I put it on the screen. And if you put this language in the deed and both spouses sign, then technically you should be able to have so that one spouse waives their homestead rights. I will tell you this. I read all the cases as they come out. It's the very rare case where the courts say, oh, no problem. Your spouse has waived and you can sell the property. Homestead, they're always looking to protect the homestead. It's the default in Florida, and that's makes it difficult when you run into a divorce situation, a spouse is missing in action somewhere, is moved away, or is uncooperative. You just run into a lot of trouble in the courts. So we try to avoid that at all costs. But this statute does exist, and we've tried to use it in the past with limited success. Now, what happens if you just got married and your spouse moves into your house? Well, that's your homestead. They both sign. What if it's a second home? You just got married again, same deal. Second home, one spouse signs for, and it says non-homestead, or they both sign. If you're getting divorced, like I said, getting divorced, you both sign. And if you are divorced, then we have to look at whether you did a quitclaim deed as part of your marital settlement, or whether the judge specifically awarded the property to one spouse in the divorce. If you didn't have a quitclaim deed or you didn't get the property awarded, then both spouses have to sign, even if they're divorced, because that's the way the homestead law works. Okay, are there any questions on restraints on alienation? Okay. Seeing none so far. You can always interrupt if you have questions at any time. The next homestead protection is asset protection, and this is probably my favorite. The Florida Constitution is pretty clear on this point, actually. There are, and I'm going to read this because it's obvious, shall be exempt from forced sale under the process of any court, and no judgment, decree, or execution shall be a lien on the homestead thereon, except for payment of taxes. That's one exemption. Obligations contracted for the purchase, that's your mortgage. Improvements or repairs thereof, that's improvements to the property or repairs by contractors. Obligations contracted for house, field, or other labor performed in the realty. Again, that's your contractors. There's one that's not listed here. Also, you got to pay your association dues. But if your homestead is located outside of your municipality, and you can have up to 160 acres of land as a homestead. If you're inside a municipality, then you can have up to a half an acre of land as your homestead. And if you pass away, your spouse gets to maintain your homestead. So just to clarify this, what does all of this mean? Pay your taxes, pay your mortgage, pay your contractors, and pay your assessments, and you will have a solid homestead exemption. If you don't pay any of those, then the government, the lender, the contractor, or the association can take away your home, and there's really not much you can do about it. Again, the courts are very clear on this point, whereas the other ones, they're not so clear. Pay your taxes, pay your mortgage, pay your contractors, and pay your assessments, or you'll lose your homestead. And again, the homestead can be 160 acres out in the county or a half an acre in the city. Any questions about that? Does that make sense? Pretty basic. Okay, the last part I want to talk about here is the federal taxes. I get a lot of questions about how can I save on my or avoid capital gains on my home sale. And basically, capital gains to avoid capital gains, the house has to be your principal residence in 2 of the last 5 years. What does that mean? I'll use myself as an example. I sold my old home in 2019, October 1st of 2019. Plus 3 years, I had until October 1st of 2022 to sell the home and save up to, and I'm married, $500,000 in capital gains taxes. Individuals can save up to $250,000. Married couples get $500,000. And what I did was I rented my home for 2.5 years while the market improved through COVID, and then I sold it
with
and it was back.
requests.
Yes, sir. Yes, question? Jenny, do you have a question? Oh, okay. So I sold the home, and then I was able to realize my tax savings because I waited 2.5 years instead of going past the 3rd year mark. And if you go over 3, then having moved out, I would have paid the capital gains. Does anybody have questions about the federal taxes and how that works?
I
Go
do,
ahead.
Sam.
Yes.
So I have a seller. He's been in the house 18 months. We have it under contract. It's a duplex. He homesteaded his side, not the other.
Okay.
So what is his responsibility? It would just be on the side that's not homesteaded, correct? The gain's
Well,
gonna be like
18
90,000.
18 months, so he's not 2 years in the home as his resident. So if he sells the property before the 2 year mark, he will pay taxes on the full value of the gain. He won't get the 250 or the house. Is he married?
He's not married. He's a vet.
So unfortunately for federal tax purposes, that's not a factor. And
So it's
so
not a year and a day?
it's 2 years in a day.
2 years and a day. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Helen has a question in the chat. Let's see here. What's the property tax increase rate per year for a full-time resident? How about vacation homes? Okay, so Helen, going back to that, the property tax rate increase, I should have mentioned this, it cannot go up more than 10% at any given year. But if it's not homestead property, or if it is homestead property, it can't go up more than 3%. So for vacation homes, Helen, it will be a max of 10. For homestead, it'd be a max of 3. Rentals, of course, are not homestead, so it's a max of 10. Does that answer your question, Helen? Let's see. Okay, other questions? Nobody has any other questions? It's free legal advice. All right, well, that is Homestead in a nutshell. If you do have questions, you can always reach out to me. You can text me, you can email me, you can call me. Just be very, very careful. And remember, by the way, I'm just as an aside, be very careful with all of the other issues us realtors and closing agents and everybody else in our industry are facing right now. If you have any questions about, like the Sites or Burnett lawsuits or any of that stuff, just give me a call. We'll talk through it all. But unless there are other questions, that ends my presentation. I want to say thank you all for tuning in this early morning, and go enjoy a cup of coffee and go sell some real estate.